All right, everybody. Happy Tuesday afternoon. How's everyone doing today? Hey, Jill, what's up?
Happy Tuesday.
I see that thumbs up, Ken. I know many of you are doing this in the midst of other things, but it's always better to be able to see faces. So as many of you as can or are willing to turn on videos, that would make our time that much better. What's up, Jose?
Hey, how's it going?
How you doing?
I'm wonderful.
Good. Well, you guys are here. Today is a Q4 Market of the Moment update, where you get to watch Jose be a huge nerd for an hour talking about numbers and data and things that we should care about. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mark Sandvig. I'm team leader of Legacy Group Realty, one of the offices in Jose's KW world. As we get started, and we're going to talk about kind of what we're seeing in the market, why you should care, and what it should mean for the way that you're interacting with your clients and thinking about your business. I would just love to get you all going in a word, or even better with an emoji. I would love your perspective. How are you feeling in this market right now? So light up the chat with your perspective on how you're feeling. Be honest. It doesn't have to be all sunshine and rainbows. What are you seeing in the market? Tired, Aaron. Okay, that's fair. Are you tired or because of the market, or are you tired because you went to Fort Lauderdale for the day yesterday? Gina dropped a roller coaster. Yep. Okay. I see you, Sandy. Yeah, all of the above. Well, yeah, Melissa. Okay, there's some tear-filled moments. Fairly good, Diana. That's great. Mary Margaret struggling to adjust. Marine, things are picking up, but buyers are struggling. Jessica Adkins feeling strong. Okay, so the full gamut. Jose, what are we trying to do today? Can you give kind of a preface on what our goal is and why this conversation matters?
Yeah. So the goal is to give you agents information so that you can go and educate the consumers out there. Right. You're the front line of talking to people on a daily basis. And so we want you to be able to have this information so you can be intelligent, be the source of information for buyers and sellers. I think the way I look at it is good agents understand what's going on in the market. I think great agents, though, they understand it, and then they can digest it and be able to give that information to their database, to their appointments that they go out throughout the day, to the person at Starbucks that asks them, how's the market? Like, that's our job as realtors, to educate and assist clients. And so this is that education part of what's going on in the market.
Yeah, and I think it boils down to, and don't misinterpret this, but part of our job as agents, in that being the local economist of choice, is to help control the conversation, right? It's everyone has a perspective. Everyone's seeing some sort of news as it relates to real estate. Everyone has some kind of fake news idea about a bubble or what's going to happen with interest rates in the coming year, or whatever. And I think the great agents, to your point, Jose, are the ones that can help to control that conversation by actually being deeper into the weeds today. For those of you who are kind of either newer to the KW world or not in the KW world, a lot of what we're going to do today is dive into data. A lot of what we're going to be looking at the start is going to be pulling from national trends. What are we seeing kind of in macro, not just real estate data, but in economic data, because it's all kind of a complicated piece of the pie. So we're going to look nationally. Obviously, I was saying earlier today that the blessing of living in Ohio is that nothing happens first in Ohio. And so we're then going to look at trends in Ohio and to see what's specific there. But then the kind of the so what does this mean for your life, for your business, for the conversations you're having, the steps that you're taking, and the decisions that you're making within your business?
Yeah. Awesome. So in essence, Mark and I are tasked with trying to make a bunch of stats not boring for you guys. So hopefully we can do a decent job with that.
Help us, Jose.
We have a lot of stats.
All right, unemployment. Let's talk about why unemployment matters, Jose, as we think about real estate.
Yeah, it's unemployment is probably one of the leading indicators of the leading and probably one of the biggest indicators of how the economy is doing, right? And you can see based on this graph, like we're at it looks like to be the lowest historical number with unemployment, in the last 25, 35 years. If you went to go hire someone recently, you know what that looks like. I mean, basically anybody that wants to work a lot of times right now is working. Just unemployment as at an all-time low, basically.
Right. Which, we talk about inflation, but this is on its surface, we would want unemployment to be as low as possible, right? Like, of course, we want everyone to have jobs, but the shadow side of low unemployment is that forces prices up, which is what we're seeing across all sectors. But when everyone's got jobs, employers, in order to attract the sort of talent they want, have to pay more, which is good for the employee, but it has ripple effects throughout the rest of the economy.
Sure. This graph here kind of shows us like what that looks like in real life. So the teal one is how many unemployed people there are throughout the United States. And then the orange shows us how many jobs are available, posted out there, opened for the consumer. And you can see actually 2018, we started to see a shift of what I would say like a worker shortage. And outside of that crazy spike there in the pandemic, like we've been running at this worker shortage for a couple years now. It just kind of feels more intense as of recently, because I think COVID, people retiring, aging community, all of these type of things have kind of made it feel even more intense recently.
Right. We all remember May of 2020, don't we? What on earth is about to happen in our economy? And fortunately, things have stabilized, but the ongoing effects, for those of you who were watching some of this stuff a couple of years ago, Gary Keller talked about a K-shaped recovery, which is basically the people with good paying jobs with kind of COVID resistant jobs who were able to work from home were going to land on their feet just fine, but the hospitality, the restaurant, kind of the more the lower end of the labor force was hit harder. And oftentimes those are our first-time home buyers. Those are the ones who are saying, I can't afford to live in this environment. So we're continuing to feel the effects of that moment for sure.
So we're here to bring the most groundbreaking news, and that's that inflation has been high over the last 12 to 18 months. And so you can see here, this just shows what inflation has done. And it has, and obviously you all have experienced this and your clients have experienced this, but like it is coming down. I don't know if it's coming down to the point where the powers that be are super comfortable. It's coming down slowly. And from everything I've read and watched is they're going to continue to apply pressure to get it down. And 2% is really that magic number of where they want to be at. And you can see they're projecting in 2024, which just happens to be a election year. We won't get into politics, but it happens to be an election year where they are expecting the inflation to get back under control. It is trending in the right direction. And everyone that has went to Wendy's and spent $13 instead of $8 understands that like it's still there and it's not went back to normal.
Just two comments there. One, Jose, that's a really insightful comment. And as we think about the news that we're diving into, the headlines we're paying attention to, what the talking heads are saying, an election year is where you're going to see more fluff, than normal. You're going to have people saying, "Oh, everything is about to get better. Should you elect me?" And And I'm, again, not a political statement, but traditionally, not everything is made better once someone new is elected. And so our job is to actually pay attention to the data, which is going to tell more of the truth than many of the people running for office. I think just a second quick point, as you think about the actionables coming from this class, you can do screen grabs of this. This is, this is not our proprietary information, but we can also send the national information out as a slide deck afterwards. This content, maybe not inflation in particular, but it can go into your listing presentations. It can go into your buyer packets. This is for you to help educate your consumers.
Same story. It's came down and it hasn't came down enough yet. And it's trending to come down, but it's still not coming down at a rapid enough clip for everyone involved. So this is home sales annually. So you can see the orange there. That's what they're projecting. So they, as in the National Association of Realtors, which has been super popular lately, they are projecting that we're going to finish 2023 as in 4.3 million in sales. Now, if you look at that on a historical level, you can see, like, if we hit 4.3, one, it's a lot different than what we've experienced over the last 10 years, right? Go back 10 years, you've been at 5.1, 5.3, had maxed out at 6.1, and now we're projecting to be at 4.3. But not only that, but like go back to 2000, like you're only seeing 1 year, which is 2008, at that number or below, right? Or below that number, I guess. And 08 was like, I don't know, the apocalypse of real estate, right? Like everyone was losing their mind. Everyone, like it was a very, very intense time if you were a realtor. And it's amazing how quickly this has changed over the last 24 months, right? Yeah, any insight into that, Mark, or comments?
Yeah, I think like you've heard a dozen times, nobody has a crystal ball here. And I think you're traditionally going to see prognosticators are going to give a softer landing than often happens. It's easier to kind of be conservative. Oh, the sky's not falling, and the sky isn't falling. You all are here. You're continuing to work and to grow and to run businesses. That being said, if you look at 2021 to today, like that's a seismic, like that's every bit the drop that 2005 to 2007 was. So you're feeling it. And the market has felt it. And yet the economic factors are very different from what they were back in the early 2000s. Yeah. Jose, Mike has asked for you to go back one more slide really quick. I'm guessing he's just wanting to grab it. Is that the one, Mike?
And we'll make this available to all parties involved.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So now this next one I think is important. We're spending a second on it, is kind of digest what this information is that you're seeing. So the purple bars are each month last year, and the projected, if they stayed at that level, kind of where it would finish at for the year, or how many were in that month. The teal is same month, just this year. And so you can see, like, January 2022, we started off amazing, right? And then over time, like, it kind of, as rates went up, sales went down. And then you can see what has happened this year. And so right now, like, they're projected to be anywhere between 4 and 4.2 is like the finishing number. So if we go back a slide, their NAR is saying we're going to hit 4.3. I'm going to be on the skeptical train to say we're going to get to 4.3, because if in August we were at projected around 4.04, I don't think any of us expect September numbers, which haven't officially came out yet, and then the rest of the year to be higher than what we saw at the earlier part of the year, I guess. So I don't know, like, the highest part of the year we were at a seasonally adjusted rate at 4.5. I don't know if we're going to see that 4.3, which is what NAR is projecting. Again, what Mark said was like most of the time they give positive information and go to the better limits of it. I don't know. I mean, I could just be skeptical. I'm concerned that we'd even get to 4.3, to be honest.
Well, and Mark King, our KWRI's president, who also doesn't have a crystal ball. If you go back one slide, Jose, he said he thinks that this will be our lowest year since 1995, which was 3.8. That was his guess. So he's kind of with you, Jose, with a shadier lens on things. And we've all heard the phrase, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, right? So even if you think maybe it'll be better than that, I think a question that we're asking, and this is always a question we're asking going into Q4, is what unnecessary expenses do you have in your business? What lead sources aren't converting? How do we make sure that we're as dialed in and focused as possible? Because very few people have their best quarter ever in their fourth quarter. So regardless of whether it's 4.3 or 3.8, I think looking at your business through a more critical lens to make sure that there's not fluff that your business can't actually afford should it continue to slow down.
So this is an interesting slide that worked well for us when we were like, oh, prices are going up and they're still not that bad. And you can see that's kind of changed. So that teal line represents if we had steady appreciation for every year over year, we'd be at 4%. And that's what we kind of shoot for. And you can see like there was all of these years here that we were under that. And so the last couple of years, our story has been, well, we're still under that line or we're just slightly above it. So it's really still affordable. And you can see like we're still above that line. And to me, that's like to me, I look at that as like the danger line, right? Like we go over that, the longer we go over it, the likelier it's going to be to fall, basically, and it's going to be a harder fall. So you can see what happened last time we went above it. We were above it for a couple of years, everything reset, and then we were way below it. So like, just understand, no one knows what's going to happen with prices, and prices are going to be determined a lot by the inventory. And above that line is to me a little bit scary for the future.
Well, and the Fed, what is it? Lashings will continue until morale improves. Like the Fed is looking at this and saying, like, you're asking for us to stop raising interest rates. Like until we see, they're not looking at the same graph, but until we see below the line numbers, like, sorry, not going to happen. Right. And so I think that's, while we love higher sales prices because it pads our wallets from a commission standpoint, the Fed's unlikely to make the drops that we'd like to see until it settles down a little bit, and hopefully it's a little bit.
So mortgage rates, again, breaking news here on K1 Network. Mortgage rates are a little bit high, and this is actually, I don't know. Again, I think it's a little bit on the low side. If anybody knows what rates are like today in a roundabout way, go ahead and drop it in the chat box. But they've used this, as the powers that be at KW, have used this graph to say like rates really aren't all that bad, right? They're not really all that bad. And look at it historically. I was in real estate in 1983 and whatever. But you can see like we're inching towards kind of the historical average since 1972. Like we're there, if not over that number, depending on the lender and the situation. So it's a very real scenario.
Yeah, we're getting 7.8, 7.25 and above, 7.72. Sarah, that means you're looking at Mortgage News Daily, because I'm looking at the same thing. And it is, none of us, well, there might be a lender or two on this call, but the sorts of products that your clients are looking at may be different given this environment, and that's a separate conversation altogether. But we're still well in line with historical averages. It's more just the whiplash that we've felt over the course of the last 3 years.
One little one little practical tool I would say to stay on top of what is going on with rates is to download the app Mortgage News Daily, and then set yourself up to get notifications from them. What it does is basically every day it sends me a notification of what the rates are. Now, I'm not going around and quoting that rate to an individual when I meet them, but it gives me a gauge of like, oh, rates are up, rates are down. The reality is like, I don't even really need that because I know how many people are calling on my listings based on what the rates are doing. But it's a very good way. It's a very simple way to stay on top of what's going on with interest rates. Mortgage News Daily, set up the daily notification.
Free app, very easy to use. Even I can use it. Jose, go deeper on that for a second. I know what's going to happen based upon the number of calls I'm getting on my listings. Tease that out more for us.
Yeah, it's actually this next, not this slide, but the next one. But you can see what rates have done. Again, this is not new information, except in July, they were 7.18. And the next time this comes out, they're going to be up and to the right even more.
Yep, no question.
So this, if you're going to use any slide here, this is probably the one that you want to use. Disregard the little scratchy line in the middle of like what rates do, because that's just a time of when rates were up and down. But this is a very powerful, on the listing side, this is a very powerful tool to be able to talk to your clients about. And so what this says is if interest rates are below 6, you have a very strong buyer demand, also known as 2015 to 2022, right? We were in that green area and actually way below that green area. It then says if you go between 6 and 6.5, you're going to have decent buyer demand, I would say. And as you go up, you're going to get weaker buyer demand. So that comment about I put a sign in the yard, why isn't my phone ringing? We're probably in the red or the pink of why buyers are like cooling off. And then like I've seen it on my listings is we put a house on the market, it's in the red or the pink. We immediately, something happens in the economy, it drops below 6.5, and you get multiple offers on a property. I don't know if anybody else has seen that, but it's a very real thing that is affects buyers and how confident they are with how they're approaching the market and what's their buying power, really. Because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, is their buying power. That's why when prices were going up, but rates were going down, it was like camouflaged, right? But now that rates are up, now they're like, oh, I don't know about that price.
Right, right. It's not just an interest rate issue. And I think a factor that's been interesting, shall we say, over the course of the last couple of years is the amount of cash. You know, the percentage of deals that have been cash deals over the course of the last couple of years has just skyrocketed. And so I think the statement that Jose just made as it relates to traditional style homes, hey, I'm listing the average home in the average neighborhood that's going to attract that typical buyer. This slide undoubtedly applies in the more cash likely scenarios. So, you know, a low-end investor environment, a high-end land, deals that are more likely to attract cash. And granted, cash can show up on any deal. That's where it becomes a little bit more variable, but agreed, huge value of this slide right here.
All right, so that was national, and I think it's important to know what's going on nationally with the economy and home sales and stuff like that. But we all know on this call, like, everything happens on a local level, right? And so while the information that you're going to look at right now is residential, which means single family and condo in the MLS, and it's from a scattering of counties that we cover in the K1 network. So we're talking about Medina, Stark, Summit, Cuyahoga, Lake, Geauga. I probably missed one or two of them, but this is a compiling. And so the reason I say that is while we're giving you this information, it's good. And you should know what's going on in your market. If you sell in North Ridgeville, you should have North Ridgeville numbers. If you sell in Berea, you should be having Berea numbers. And so this is a snapshot of the Northeastern Ohio kind of general market.
And all of these statistics are pulled direct from the MLS, correct?
Yes. No, I made them up. A
Winging
bunch
it.
of numbers. All right, so there's a lot of numbers on here, but let me tell you what we're looking at. So these are the number of closed transactions by month. And so first thing everyone would probably go through is like, oh, what's September of 2023? It's 2551. Oh my gosh, the world's ending. I don't know if that number is 100% accurate because I pulled it yesterday off the MLS. And like Friday, I had 4 of my properties that were closing. And are they changed in the MLS yet? Who knows? When will they change? Who knows? Will they be backdated? Blah, blah, blah. So don't freak out because of that number. I think the numbers that we want to look at is like August of 2023. So August of 2023, there was 3,218 homes or condos sold in that month. And what does that compare to the other August is, right? Because the seasonability, you really need to like take that into consideration. So 3,218 versus last year, you were at close to 4,000. If my math's any good, that's somewhere around an 18 to 19% drop in, I'm pretty accurate.
Pretty good, 19.3.
19.3 drop in the amount of sales this September versus last September, right? If you want to go back further, you can look at 2021 and 2020. But that's a pretty substantial drop. 18%, 19% is the number that I've heard kind of with most agents in this area, that 15 to 20% is that number of less transactions out there. Anything to add to that, Mark?
I would just say, you know, I think it's easy to talk about what's coming. And I think I just want to highlight here as we look at a few years worth of data, and obviously the months in that is, it's not what's coming, it's what we're in. And so I think if you're still on this call and you're still in this business, it's like, no, we've endured many months now where the previous, you know, that month was lower than the previous year, and that month was lower than the previous year. And so I think I want you to take some encouragement there. If you're still, you know, grinding and holding or even growing, that's a remarkable thing, because it's not like this is a thing that might be coming. It's like, no, it's a thing that we're in. And I don't know if it's going to do this or if it's just going to do this for a little while longer. But you're making it.
I think it feels a little bit more intense because of one factor that's not on here. And so if we look at August of 2023, 3,218 transactions. You know, historically, if you look back to a 2013, which was a good market, a steady market, not bad, it's really not that different. The difference is there's 1.6 million realtors out there.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, 2010, we were at about 800,000 to 900,000 realtors. So we're literally double. So like in 2013, let's make an educated guess that we were probably at 1.1 million realtors. So you have, in essence, more or less the same amount of transactions, or maybe even a little bit less. And you have a lot more people fighting for that transaction. I use the really dumb analogy that probably all of you have heard, which is, if you remember the game as a kid, the Hungry Hippos. People remember that?
Oh, yeah. I don't even remember that game. I played that game recently.
Okay, cool. So if you think of the game Hungry Hippos, there's, I don't know, call it 6 hippos, and you hit the thing and you try to get the balls, and that's what we're experiencing. But there's just like 3 times as many realtors as what there used to be, or 2 times as many realtors, and that's the Hungry Hippos, and there's less balls for them to like grab, if that makes sense. It's a really bad analogy, but if you played the game, you know what I'm talking about.
And I think just to comment further on that is, you know, at KW, we value being the sort of agent that people like doing deals with, not operating from a scarcity mindset, you know, operating in a win-win or no deal sort of way. And as a seasoned agent, to see declining agent numbers, which we are seeing this year, by the way, on a national level. Ohio, Northeast Ohio hasn't really seen too much of it yet. I think the temptation is to be like, hurrah, like I just got a bigger piece of the pie. But just my encouragement is like, continue to be kind. You never know. You never know who's going to emerge and who is going to choose to, go back to their full-time job. But continue to be the sort of agent that people like doing deals with.
Yeah. Way to be, Mark.
Yeah,
All right, so this is the other story of active listings. So this is basically pretty simple, but it's right now, well, as of when I pulled this, in the counties that I talked about, there's about 4,974 active listings. I mean, just look at the numbers of September of 2013.
Yeah.
You're 21,000 listings versus 5,000 listings. Like it's just an insane number. And I don't think if we did a poll last year at this time, anybody in their right mind would have said, oh yeah, in a year from now, there's actually going to be less listings, right? Like we all were like saying, oh my gosh, there's no houses for sale a year ago, and it's only gotten more extreme, right? It's the whole lock-in effect that we're seeing like play out in real life. But it's just very astonishing to me. If you were in the business in 2013, like those weren't bad years by any stretch. It was very much a balanced market, but to see like there's 21,000 houses for sale versus right now 5,000, just to me is a very mind-blowing number.
Talk with me for a minute, Jose, as one who was there during that time. Like what was your mentality? What were the challenges that you faced in your business 10 years ago relative to today?
Yeah, and anybody that was in the industry then, you can feel free to put some stuff in the chat, but I remember we were carrying anywhere between 70 and 90 active listings, right? And so we had to do these things called price adjustments. I don't know if anybody on this call has heard of them, but we had to do price adjustments and call the seller every 2 weeks to let them know what was going on with their house. And hey, it should only be another 30 days or another 60 days. Like average time on the market was, probably 80 to 90 days back then, not 80 to 90 hours. And so like the servicing of the client was a lot more intense on the listing side for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we are, while inventory is tight, largely because of interest rates, we are having some of those conversations now. Certainly nothing like what you would have in 13, but it's not the auto sell, depending on the house and the asset class and all community, that it was 2 years ago relative to today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any comments from people that were old souls like me? It feels weird to say.
Old soul. Sarah Donahue, really quickly. This is from surrounding counties, so this is a handful, but five or six counties.
5 or 6 counties, yeah.
Stark included, but not Stark exclusive. These numbers can be pulled for Stark exclusively from the MLS pretty easily.
Yeah, but I think so. We're giving you this information, and what I encourage you to do is if you're going on a listing appointment and it's in Fair Lawn, let's say, you should have Fair Lawn numbers of how many houses are active, for comping out something at 250, between 200 and 300. You need to know those numbers to say, here's the competition. Is that up from before, down from before? Not only is it good information for the seller to hear, it's also a way to set you apart from everyone else, because I can guarantee you the other agents aren't doing that. Showing them the inventory, telling them how that is relative to the amount of houses selling and so forth.
Right.
Cool. Okay, so we went over this last time we did this, but I think it's a very important concept that I want to make sure everyone on here understands. So months of inventory is a conversation that we should all be having with clients, because that is Probably one of the most important metrics of where the market is going and what can I expect when I put a house on the market, or if I'm a buyer, what can I expect in this price point. So months of inventory is determined by taking the number of houses that are for sale currently, divide that by the number of houses that sell per month. Okay. And that equals the months of inventory. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm going to a listing appointment in Green. I pull up Green schools and I pull up between 200,000 and 300,000. Over the last 6 months, I can see that, I'll do easy math, 36 houses have sold. And there's currently, let's say, 12 houses on the market. 12 houses on the market, 36 houses sold in the last 6 months. Who in the chat box can tell me how many months of inventory I have in that scenario? And I can't see the chat box, so I have no clue if people are interacting or not, or if I'm just talking to myself.
Brent said 2.
2, that is correct. Yeah, so in this scenario, this made up scenario, 100 homes for sale, 20 houses sell per month. It's 5 months of inventory. Brett, you get a thumbs up for getting it correct. And so with that being said, when you go into a listing appointment, when I go into a listing appointment, those are numbers that I have, because that same scenario, let's say it's Green 200,000 to 300,000, that's way different than Green 150,000 to 200,000. And that number is way different than Green 600,000 to 700,000, right? And if I'm setting expectations with the seller, I have to know that information to set the proper expectations, right? Because if I'm running a 5-month supply of inventory, I need to have a different conversation with them than if we have a 1-month supply of inventory and we're going to get multiple offers and it's going to go right away.
Right.
Yeah.
And most of what we've seen over the course of the last couple of years has been less than a month of inventory.
Yeah.
Has been pretty consistent. We're getting up a little bit more than that now, but it's been tight. Jose, just can we go back for a quick second on your prep for a listing appointment? Is what you just described how you do it? Hey, if I'm thinking the house is probably worth 250, I'm going to run it for 2 to 3 in this area, kind of the $100,000 range with your property in the middle. Is that your practice?
Yeah, but if it's a lesser house, it's a $150,000 house. I'm not doing 100 to 200. That's probably too much. 125 to 175. I condense it a little bit more. I just want to get a feeling of that buyer's experience, those sellers' experience of what is actually happening in that subsection of the market. And I'm coming in and I'm telling them that, which again, most agents probably aren't. So we're like separating ourselves from everyone, and they need to know the information.
How about, and this can be my last follow-up on this, some of our agents work in more rural communities where it's, hey, it's a kind of a weird old house that's on 18 acres that has a pond in the back. Like, how do you think about inventory with the more unique property types?
So kind of like what we're doing with this call, we go macro to micro in a listing appointment. So macro is like, hey, Tusk County, 200,000 to 300,000. Micro is going to be, let's actually look at some comps that are actually comparable to what your house is. But we're going to start with an overview, and then we're going to drill down. And at the end of the day, they're going to know we're the most educated realtor out there and the best person to represent them, basically. But you're going to start bigger and then go smaller.
Great. Thank you.
So again, months of inventory, hugely important. As a nation, we're sitting at 3.3 months supply. That is very different than what we're experiencing in Northeastern Ohio. Northeastern Ohio, I mean, it's very rare to see even over 2 months supply of inventory in any subsection that I have been working. So yes, it's up, but it only had to go up from where we were at.
Right.
Yeah.
This isn't great news. It's just not as awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is trending up. Where it's going to end, who knows? But that's ultimately going to determine, where prices go, right? Just that's an important number to keep an eye on with what's going on nationally, but more importantly, what's going on in your market that you serve. Okay, so what's next? This is a crystal ball of who knows what's going to happen. Is there going to be a bunch of foreclosures? Are people going to be losing the house? Blah, blah. It doesn't seem that way, right? So these are the number of underwater homes, and underwater homes simply means I owe 200 and my house is only worth 150. Common sense tells you there's not going to be a lot of those situations because prices have just went up over however long, right?
Right.
And
Until there's a major price correction, we're unlikely to see this statistic change dramatically.
Right. Yeah. Yep. This goes along with the same thing. Like, what about foreclosures? Is there going to be a wave of foreclosures that happen? It's hard to think that when you look at the number of foreclosure filings that are happening. It's still at a really ridiculously low level. And again, the reason is because if I run into financial problems, I have equity, right?
Yeah.
There's so many people out there with equity that if I run into a financial situation, I can get out of it. Whereas if prices are going down, that's a lot harder, right?
Right. Yeah. The no one should be foreclosed in this market if they've bought it somewhat responsibly. And obviously there's extenuating circumstances, but part of our job, as we've talked at some of our meetings, is you don't have past clients, you have clients for life. And as you sold someone in 21 when it was a super aggressive multiple offer sort of scenario, your job continued beyond 2021 to stay in relationship with them. And as they're facing things like, hey, the annual home checkup on the value, those sorts of things are kind of standard practices that need to be part of the value that you provide to your clients. None of your clients should be foreclosed if they bought in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Yep. So all that to say, like, where is there opportunity? Because I think the biggest thing is what I have seen, especially over the last 6 months or so, the people that are calling and saying they want to buy a house, or they're calling to say, I want to sell a house. Before, it was a market of opportunity, right? Like people were just moving because money's cheap, houses are flying off the market. And I had a client that he owned a home in Jackson. He was going to downsize and he bought a house in North Canton, decided he didn't like the house in North Canton, and then sold it to move back to the house in Jackson because that he hadn't put it on the market yet. And he made money doing that. And he didn't buy the house at like a ridiculous price. It was just prices were going up. So he sat on it for 2 months and it went up enough and he cleared the commissions and made a little bit of money, and no harm, no foul. It was a move of opportunity, right? What I have seen is those moves have really, like, that's not happening. If you're moving right now, there's a real legitimate reason why you are moving, why you're giving up your 3% rate or your 4% rate, why you're selling that house. Like, there's a real legitimate reason behind that move for you. Any thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, no question. And I think, we talk about finances. Finances are always personal. And I think we can talk data, we can talk market trends. And at the end of the day, good agents, to my earlier comment, are the ones who stay in relationship with their people. And it's not, oh, I think my house is worth more, now I'm going to sell. It's life's changed and I need different type of space for different reasons, or a different location for different reasons. And the good agents will, as Jose dives into here, be clued into that.
So whenever I present stuff, I don't want to do stock photography necessarily and just say like, oh, this is what a talking head here said somewhere. And so I think it's the case. It's like actually like the reality of what I'm seeing on a daily basis. And this may feel like stock photography because maybe you've heard some of this before, but it's actually like 100% reality of what we're seeing on a daily basis. So diamonds, people getting married, like I was telling Mark, I have a client that has their house on the market. He's probably in his 60s or 70s, and he just got married. His wife passed away a couple years ago, and he's getting married. She had a house. He had a house. He's getting rid of his house. That's why he's selling his house right now, right? So he's getting married. This is real life. People get married. People want to move out of mom's basement and have their new house with their new person. So that's one reason, and this is an area to focus on as you're building out your 2024 business plan of like, how can I be in more relationship with people like this? Diapers, people adding to their family. Now, what I have seen is before you have your third kid and you're like, I want to get another house with more bedrooms, right? What I have seen recently is like, yeah, I would, but maybe they should just share rooms, right? Like there's a little bit more hesitation in that concept, where before it was like, we got to move. Let's go ahead and move. It's a great market. Let's move. Now they're saying maybe we finished a bedroom in the basement. Maybe they can just share a room, no matter how much they don't get along. It's fine, right? And so I think that while that opportunity is still there, it may just look differently, and they maybe have to feel the pain a little bit more before they're actually ready to make that move.
Well, and to just piggyback on that for a second, we have looked at adding on to our house, and adding on to your house is never like a financially savvy thing to do, right? But it's actually because our home is at a 2.89% mortgage
You're the
rate.
problem, Mark.
Yeah, to add on a more expensive HELOC with an existing low interest rate is actually going to be cheaper in cost than it would be to buy the sort of home that we would need in a lot of ways. So I'm living proof that that adding on may not, or that wanting more space may not always mean a move like it did in 2020.
Right.
Everyone did it in 2020.
And if rates were at 3, that may play a different factor into that conversation to say, like, do I add on or do I move? And now that rates are at close to 8, that makes the conversation a little bit more lopsided.
No question.
Yeah. Distress. So, I mean, we just said unemployment's really low. So I don't think a lot of people are losing their jobs. And I know a lot of people are still really bad with money. So financial issues, lost jobs play a factor into some of the distress situations that we see out there.
No question.
Transfer, move out of there. I don't know if you guys know this, but people in Ohio tend to move out of Ohio. Again,
they come back.
So we're still seeing like, hey, I want to move to Florida, or I have 2 houses in Florida and I'm going to get rid of my Ohio house, right? And so just transfers, move out of the area. I no longer have to be in Cleveland for my job. I can work remotely. I'm moving to Charleston, South Carolina, whatever the case is. Those moves are still happening. We're seeing them.
Yep. And they may be happening increasingly. Corporate relo was not too much of a thing over the course of the last couple of years because companies were working from home and giving as much flexibility as possible. Many of those same companies are saying, nah, you got to come in, which means the person who decided to stay somewhere because they could is now needing to relocate. We just helped a friend sell their home in that exact situation last month, which is just interesting to see corporate America is evolving as well.
Yeah. That's estates, like those are always going to be a part of the market. When the market is less, they're going to be a bigger part of the market. So do you have a plan around relationships with estate attorneys, probate attorneys? Like, what is your relationship with those people to be able to get some of that business that's out there? I've seen kind of 2 kind of thoughts around investors. One, rehabbers are still working out there. They're still doing it. It's a good market for rehabbers still, right? Prices are high, and they're able to sell their properties, and there's limited inventory. So that's one concept. The other one is I've seen some investors that watched a little bit of too much YouTube about how to invest in real estate and bought some properties, and then they look up 2 years or 3 years after buying that, and they're like, I don't really know if this is really what I want to do. I don't know if I want to deal with tenants. I don't know if the return on the investment is really what I wanted. And so we're starting to see some investors that, bought 2, 3, 4 years ago, turn around and say, I can get out of that rental and make money and move on with my life. And so that would be an area, if you're not working in that, man, you should really be open to that potential.
One layer to add to that, and this is a personal story as well, is retiring landlords who, hey, they bought it 10, 20, 30 years ago. They've got a whole lot of equity. Maybe it's paid off. They think the market is as good as maybe it's going to be for a while. You're going to see liquidation. And I actually bought four properties this summer from a retiring landlord who seller financed them to me. And I was able to get better than market average rates. And he wanted to do that because there were tax benefits to do so. And so it was, there's inventory out there, and there's buyer opportunity as well. And so those, I think we're going to maybe do a creative financing class at one of these points, because I think there's a lot of opportunities given how many people either have paid off properties or super low interest rates on their mortgages out there, particularly for investors.
Yeah. If I'm sitting on this call and I've been in the business for a little bit, and I sold an investor a piece of property 2+ years ago, man, you need to be in a relationship with that person. What are they up to? What are they thinking? Are they looking to buy more? Are they looking to liquidate? Like, that's a potential of future business that you want to be in pretty close relationship with.
No question.
And then the last one is, I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of housing market, there's people that are getting divorces. And it's an opportunity out there for us to be the person that can help them through that process. And if you play it right, you might be able to get 3 transactions out of one situation. So yeah, that's where we're seeing, like, the opportunity moves out. The moves that are happening right now are the people that have some real motivation.
Right. And those people need to be in your database. You're not going to go to divorceleads.com and pay for leads to get, these are database relationships, either business to business, but more personally as well. So get into your database.
Yeah. So the last thing is, this is just my 2 cents. This isn't KW. This is just me talking for someone that's been in the business for over 20 years, of what I think you on this call the mindset around how to win in the next 6 months. Because I'd imagine if there's 70 people on this call, there's probably quite a few that are maybe a little bit nervous about what Q4 and Q1 is going to look like, right? Like, hey, I haven't had my best year, and you're telling me maybe it's going to get a little bit harder. And so what I would say is that you can win in the next 6 months. I don't think you can win if you're using the same game plan that you had in 2020 and 2021 now, right? I think a lot of times when we look at an agent's life and what they do, the old market was 75% of my time is servicing my clients. And when I say servicing my clients, that's listing appointments, getting ready for listing appointments, presenting offers, showing houses, open houses, putting signs up. Like, that's servicing the client. And so there was so much business out there that we could spend 75% of the time and just do that activity because business was just coming in, right? And that's not where we are moving forward. And I think moving forward, at the minimum, we should probably be looking at it this way: is at least half of my time needs to be in lead gen and in lead follow-up. In lead gen and lead follow-up, and then the rest of the time is servicing the client. I don't necessarily think you have to work more hours. That's what everyone says, double down, which in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to work twice as much. I just have to be very targeted on what I'm doing in my time of lead generation and follow-up, right? And I'm dedicating more time to that, and nothing is getting in the way of that. So that's my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. Do you want to hit on this, Mark?
Yeah. One thing that you may have been hoping we dove into today, as far as what's happening in the market, which it's a separate trail, but we want you to know that we're addressing it, is the NAR lawsuit. It's a major deal right now. If you are representing buyers, which most people on this call do at one point or another, then your opportunities there for commission are more jeopardized than normal. And so for Legacy's team meeting, and it's an open invite. Next week, we're going to kind of doing 20, 30 minutes on it. What's true, what's not true, what's happening, what you need to know. And then actually 2 weeks from then, we're going to have kind of more of a workshop, which is, again, available to all. There will be more communication coming out. If you're on this list, you'll get the email about it, just so that we're equipped to know what is true and how we should approach our businesses accordingly.
Yeah. Good. Any comments, questions? You guys can come off mute. You can throw it in the chat box. If we don't know the answer, we'll make it up. I'm just kidding. We'll do our best to answer it. But if there's any comments, questions, I'd love to hear from some people to know that we didn't just spend the last 55 minutes just talking.
You want to end the slideshow so we can see more faces, Jose?
Yes, I do.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
You mean more black screens? Is that what you mean?
Exactly. Thoughts, questions?
I guess that means no.
You covered it all, Jose. Nailed it.
Cool. Well, if you guys have questions, you can always reach out to Mark or myself. Hopefully this was educational and not too boring for you. And feel free to reach out to us with any questions.
Yeah, we'll send a follow-up slideshow. And the takeaway is, what's the one thing that I can tell my people that will make a difference for how they make their decisions, both on the buy side and the sell side? I think make it actionable.
Yep.
Good to see you all. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.